what is hidden inflammation, and what is it doing to our lives?
So we tend to think about inflammation like when your ankle blows up after you twist it. I twisted my ankle in a jazzercise class and it got very, very big. That's the good kind of inflammation. That's the kind of inflammation that the body creates in order to allow some immobility so that joint can heal. But what I'm talking about is the inflammation that we really can't see. It's deep inside. So what does that look like? Well, inflammation in the head could look like migraine or could look like headaches or brain fog, or memory issue. Inflammation in the sinuses could look like runny or stuffy nose, chronic sinusitis, or con- con- constant throat clearing.
Yes.
Inflammation in the chest could look like asthma, could look like heart issues, could look like high blood pressure. Inflammation in the gut could look like bloating, it could look like cramping or digestive pain, lots of gas. Inflammation in our bowels could look like constipation or diarrhea or fluctuating between both. Inflammation in our joints, we might call that fibromyalgia or even arthritis. So anything that ends in itis, that's medical speak for inflamed. So if you have ever received a diagnosis of something has an itis, for instance, that morning when I woke up and I was blind in one eye, my diagnosis was optic neuritis, inflammation of the optic nerve.
Mhm.
The truth is that most, if not all, symptoms are due to inflammation. And inflammation is chronic inflammation is something that we need to avoid because that's what tips us over into the state of autoimmunity.
Okay, so we know that actually women are affected by that more. Is that true, and why?
Yes, in fact, significantly more women than men are diagnosed with autoimmune conditions.
Mm.
I just heard a statistic yesterday that 30% of people in the United States have some sort of autoimmune issues. And if we recognize that the majority of those people are female, this is really a female problem that we need to pay attention to and recognize that it is um, predominantly affecting women, and women need to be aware of that.
Okay, so why is it? I mean, why is it happening? What is happening with women that were so much more exposed to autoimmune conditions and inflammation?
Well, a big factor in autoimmunity is our toxin overload. We
Okay.
each have
Mhm.
a what we call a toxic threshold in our body. I like to think of this like a bucket. So into this bucket in our body goes all of the insults and assaults from daily life, whether that's stress or lack of sleep or alcohol or pharmaceutical consumption, even aspirins or antibiotics, could go in recreational drugs, we can add into that. And then we can't forget all of the pollutants that are in our world, whether those are heavy metals in our foods, additives and preservatives, the air that we breathe. If you live in a city, then you are breathing in particulates from the air, from the cars that they and the industry that is polluting our world, in our water supplies. All of these toxins are coming into our body. And as women, we have more adipose or fat tissues in our body, which hold on to those toxins more tightly than lean muscle mass does. And that might be one reason that women are more susceptible to autoimmunity and other chronic health conditions because we just store those more easily than maybe men do.
Okay, so as our talk title says, if you're thinking that just dieting and exercise is going to fix that, it's probably not right. So, what are your solutions? How are you seeing that? The steps that we can take as
So
women.
Yes, we need to really focus on detoxing our body. And as women, we need to focus maybe a little bit more than men do, although certainly lots of men come down with chronic conditions too. There are lots of ways that we can detox our body, and I love the premise of this whole summit because let's talk about technology. Technology has brought so many methodologies and devices that we can use to bring in to help with us. So everything from infrared saunas or even regular hot or dry saunas can help with that detox. I loved like hot baths with Epsom salts, just kind of as a low tech way. But we can ramp that up if we use something like an ionic foot bath, can pull those toxins and heavy metals out through our feet very painlessly and easily. We can do technologies like the Beamer, Bemer. If you've ever heard of
Mhm.
that, that's a PE mat that you can lie on, and it sends pulses of electricity into our cells, basically dilating our blood vessels and those um, allowing our body to release those toxins and help it to move out through our lymphatic system. So technology has really been coming a long way to help us reclaim our health by eliminating the toxins from our toxic threshold.
Okay, great. So now we know the toxins are really the basics of why inflammation, chronic inflammation is such an epidemic. And then you're talking about the technologies that can help it. Can you, is there sort of like a general way of explaining, say, for example, with infrared sauna or ionic bath, is there, what does it do to the body that it actually helps it to detox more?
So we we walk through life, we think that we are solid beings, but the truth is that all matter is made of energy, and energy is not solid. If we think back to our high school chemistry class where we learned about how atoms were connected to each other to create molecules, so we can think of like the very common hydrogen or water molecule with H2O, right? Two
Mhm.
hydrogen molecules or two hydrogen atoms and one oxygen atom. And when we draw them out in chemistry class, we draw a line between each of them to indicate that they're connected, they're held on to each other. But the truth is that those lines are not solid. It's not like a solid rope that's linking those atoms together. The bonds are vibrating, and all all life vibrates at certain frequencies. And the frequencies determine whether we are healthy or whether we are not healthy because life is all about frequencies and electricity.
Mhm.
And when we implement some of these new technologies that can help us either rebalance our frequencies in some way, whatever way that they have been out of whack, or even realign our atoms because our molecules have polarity. They have a plus and a minus. And if that polarity gets out of whack, then that causes disease and other health ailments as well. So we need to remember that we are chemical, biological, and electrical beings, and that electricity is really the spark of life. That's how our nerves send the information through our synapses, which is electrical sparks through our body. And if those pathways for that electricity to travel through our body is blocked, if you know anything about acupuncture, it's all about opening up those pathways of electricity. They got it right 5,000 years ago. They knew, they just didn't have the power that we have today that we can just plug it in and help ourselves.